Once upon a time, many years ago, in an ancient village called Atidun, lived a young couple whose names were Olu and Tutu. Olu's love for Tutu seemed unconditional. Olu had adored and cherished Tutu so much, not just because of her exceptional beauty, which the villagers thought was why he loved her the way he did, but it was because he felt so lucky to be loved and to have been chosen by Tutu. Tutu is not from Atidon village. She's from one of the neighboring villages around. Tutu was extremely beautiful that not only the men of her village sought her hand in marriage, but various men from other villages as well. Majority of these men were very wealthy, good looking, and even some of royal blood. However, Tutu chose Olu instead. Olu, an ordinary farmer from Atindun village, she fell in love with naturally when she visited Atidun for the first time ever, when her best friend Iriti just married her husband at the time, who is also from Atindun village. It was Olu's humor, his jokes, the stories he told, and the sweet way he laughed and smiled when he told them was what made Tutu fell for Olu. And Olu, though it was Tutu's beauty that attracted him also at first to her, he grew to love her soul. And when she chose him against all odds above everyone else, he worshipped her. Many years after Olu and Tutu became man and wife, they waited for the gods to bless them with children. However, 5 years into their marriage, they were yet to have any children. Tutu was bothered. She cried day and night and would drench her clothes with tears, praying to the gods to have mercy on her and bless her with a child. And then, after 7 long years of waiting, it happened. The gods finally smiled on them and blessed them with a son. Tutu and Olu were joyous. They threw a big feast and invited friends and families to rejoice with them. However, as the days passed, something about their newborn son bothered Olu and Tutu. This was the fact that the skin of their son was remarkably pale, almost white. Not just the skin, but everything about the baby was light. His eyes were a very pale brown, and his hair an exceptionally light blonde. This unexpected paleness was a stark contrast to their own features, and even that of every other person in Atindun village. Olu and Tutu had thought at first when the baby was born that it was because he was a newborn. Newborns sometimes look different, they had said, and believed that it would gradually change to normal with time. But when after weeks it remained that way, same, bright, pale, and unlike anyone in Atidun, Olu and Tutu became very bothered. Well, their son was an albino, and they do not know this, as they had never seen an albino before in Atidun village. It was not only Tutu and Olu who noticed their son's skin condition. The villagers noticed as well, and they started talking about it in hushed tones. Because like I mentioned earlier, the villagers had never seen an albino before. Whispers rise in the village. Curious glances turned into long stares. Friendly smiles turned into silence. Did you see the child? That skin, those eyes. It doesn't look human, the villagers murmured under their breaths. Are you sure that woman is not from the marine world? I mean, see how so beautiful she is. Then she wasn't able to conceive on time, even when her husband confirmed that he married her a virgin. And when she finally conceived, she brought forth a child with skin as white as leprous. Certainly, Tutu must either be possessed or be from the marine world. One Iyadeji, Tutu and Olu's neighbor, said to the other women at the markets one day. The women of the village avoided Tutu, as some believed that Tutu and her baby were evil, while some believed that they were cursed. We do not want our skin to become white or have children with white skin, the women said. Tutu and Olu's worry about their son grew. It was as if the gods had answered their prayers in a way that would bring questions. And so, hidden beneath the love they had for the son they had waited so long to hold, came a quiet fear and uneasiness. Unable to bear the confusion any longer, Tutu and Olu decided to consult a diviner.
The gods said there is nothing wrong with your child. Why they have made his skin this way, I do not know, because they did not reveal that to me. Just go home and appreciate the gods for the blessing they have given to you,
the diviner told Tutu and Olu. So, Tutu returned home and decided to embrace her child the way he is, and saw him as the precious gift from the gods. She held her son tighter, pressed kisses to his pale skin, and called him a miracle, a joy, her answered prayers. However, her husband Olu did not believe that his child was normal. He refused to accept his albino child as a blessing and saw him rather as a curse and something that brought him shame. He heard all the rumors of the villagers about his son, the reason he thought so himself. And so, Olu also avoided his wife and his child. He told Tutu to take her son and move to another hut at the other end of the compound. He refused to name the child, so Tutu named him Temidayo, which means joy is mine nevertheless. Tutu took care of her son Temidayo all alone. It was difficult though, because the discrimination from the villagers continued. As a matter of fact, it intensified with each growing years. Parents warned their children not to interact and associate with Temidayo. Vendors refused to sell to them whenever they want to buy from them. Tutu had to make a small farm at the back of her hut and grow almost everything she needed, since the majority of the villagers were unwilling to sell to her and her son. Olu even married another woman. He said he could no longer touch Tutu because he didn't want any more cursed children to come from her, and that he no longer considers Tutu his wife and Temidayo his son. So, he married a new wife who would give him children he believed would not be cursed and would not be albinos. The name of his new wife was Ajoke, and Ajoke bore Olu a daughter. She wasn't albino, so Olu cherished his daughter instead and called her his only child. This hurt Temidayo so much, who wished that his father would love and accept him as well. Mother, am I truly cursed? Temidayo asked his mother one day. No, my child, you are not cursed, Tutu replied. Then why do I look different from everyone else? Temidayo asked again. It is because you are special, my child, Tutu replied. Then, if I am special, why do people avoid me? Why do they think I am cursed, mother? He asked. See, my child, when people do not understand a thing, they tend to misinterpret it. You were given to me by the gods after many years of crying and waiting on them. And since they choose to give you to me looking this way and different from everyone else, I believe it is the God's way of making you special, Tutu told her son, for that is what she believed. So, Temidayo endured it all the insults and discriminations from his father and every other person in Atindu. He consoled himself with the fact that his mother was there for him at least and that she loved him. However, when Temidayo turned 14, his mother died after weeks of battling an illness and being neglected, leaving Temidayo all alone. As Temidayo grew into a young adult, he struggled to navigate life alone. He was always alone. No one pitied him to the extent of wanting to associate with him. The sad started calling him a pig. His skin looks like that of a pig, the villagers said. Whenever he walked in the village, children trailed him and sang songs to mock him, singing and calling him a pig. Won't you snort for us? Snort for us, pig. Snort for us, they sang. Some even threw stones at him. Cursed being, leave our land and go back to the evil realm you came from, some would say, as they threw the stones at him. Then one day, a larger percentage of the villagers came together and agreed that they do not want someone like Temidayo living amongst them anymore, and conclude that they should do something to send him away from their village. So, they went to the village head. We are not happy that you allowed a cursed being live amongst us and haven't said anything or take any actions since his birth, they said to him. Please do something. We do not want such a being living amongst us, their spokesperson said. The head of the village took a deep breath and said nothing at first for some minutes. Then he spoke. I am worried as you all are as well. And I did try to do something about it when I first heard about his birth. But when I consulted with the diviner, he said that we have nothing to worry about and that we should let the child be. And that is why I didn't take any action, the village head explained. The villagers went back to their homes, but weren't pleased with the answer the village head gave to them, and weren't okay that the village head was not going to send Temidayo away from amongst them. Days later, they gathered together again to brainstorm on what to do. After discussing for a while, they finally came up with an idea. They agreed that they would take matters into their own hands and that they will do something that would leave the village head and the elders of the village no choice but to send Temidayo away from amongst them. So, they sent a maiden, the daughter of one of their spokesmen who works as a palace maid, to steal the sacred ancestral ring of the village head. And when she did, they gave it to Ajoke, Temidayo's stepmother, to help them with the next step. Temidayo's stepmother sneaked into Temidayo's hut when he was away and hid the ring amongst Temidayo's things. Soon, the village head noticed that his sacred ancestral ring was missing. They searched the entire palace for it, and when they didn't find it in the palace, the village head ordered that the entire village be searched. So the search began. The hut and compound of every single family in the village was searched. And finally, they found it in Temidayo's hut amongst his things. Temidayo was dragged to the palace even when he pleaded, cried, and said that he was innocent. See, he's not just evil and cursed, but he's a thief as well, the villagers said as they gathered at the palace and waited for the elders and village head to pass judgments, while Temidayo was made to kneel in the palace courtyard to face trial. Temidayo cried and pleaded that he was innocent, but the elders and the village head did not believe him. In Atidun, the punishment for stealing from anyone is being flogged with 100 strokes, and the punishment for taking something sacred from the palace is banishment from Atidun. According to the allegation, Temidayo committed both stealing and was still taking something sacred from the palace. So, Temidayo was taken to the village square to be flogged mercilessly and later to be banished. As he was being led away to the village square, Temidayo cried and pleaded with his father Olu, who was amongst the crowd, to help him. Please, Father, help me, please. I am innocent. I didn't take it. Don't let them do this to me. Don't let them send me away, please. Please, Father, Temidayo cried, hoping that his father would have a little fatherly compassion left in him and would come to his rescue. But Olu looked away. I am no father to a thief and a cursed being, he said. In the presence of all the villagers, Temidayo was whipped without mercy. His fragile and pale skin was shredded and badly bruised. And without mercy, He was dragged to the boundary of the village and banished from Atidu, never to return. Meanwhile, before the judgment was passed, the diviner had spoken to the village head and advised him to tread carefully regarding the matter and to handle it with wisdom. But the village head, enraged over the theft of his sacred ancestral ring, which he believed Temidayo is guilty of, had ignored the diviner's counsel and had went ahead to pass the judgment. Temidayo was left alone in the bush. He was weak, faint, and could barely walk because of the pain and injuries he suffered from the intense flogging. For 3 days and 3 nights, Temidayo walked in the bush in his condition. With each passing hour, he grew weaker and weaker. The pain was excruciating and he hadn't had any food nor water for 3 days. And so, on the 3rd night, alone in that thick bush, he passed out. Temidayo woke up many hours later in an almost dark hut in the bush. He looked around and saw a small pot boiling on a small fireplace. "Oh, you are awake," a small frail voice said. Temidayo raised his head and there he saw a petite, frail old woman walking towards him with her walking stick. "I found you lying unconscious in the bush and brought you here to nurse you," the old woman told Temidayo. Temidayo told the old woman his story, how his father and the whole of Atidu treated him because he looked different from everyone else, and how they framed and accused him of thefts. "I can understand what you have suffered because I have suffered something similar as well. I can understand what it means to be perceived and treated differently," the old woman told Temidayo. She told him her story, that she's also from Atidum village. Many years ago, the old woman, whose name is Ewa, was born with an extremely blue eyes, making her different from everyone else in the village who had just dark brown eyes. She was also very, very beautiful. Because of her eyes and how beautiful she looked, the people of Atidum believed and concluded that she must be a witch. They murmured and gossiped about it for years. Then when Ewa grew and got married to the son of the richest man in the village at the time, the whole village, and especially other young maidens, murmured that Ewa had used a witchcraft spell to get a rich man for herself. Then, when Ewa began having children, 3 of them all died before they got to the age of 6. This made the villagers openly branded her a witch and said that she was eating her children. Her mother-in-law, who never liked her at the time and never supported her son's marriage to her, gathered the women of Atidu and they moved to throw her out of the village. They brought a false diviner who supported them and divined that Ewa is a witch, making the head of the village at the time be left with no choice than to banish Ewa from Atidu. Ewa found out from another diviner, a true one from another village, that the reason her 3 children died was because Ewa and her husband's blood do not match, and it affected the blood of all the children she had. Apparently, it is what we call genotype incompatibility in modern day time, and the result of it leading to having children with sickle cell. The people of Atidum fear what they do not know and understand, Ewa, the old woman, said to Temidayo. And instead of them seeking wisdom to help them understand what they do not know, they would rather work to destroy it with their ignorance and foolishness, she said. Anyway, the old woman told Temidayo that after she was banished from Atidu into the forest, she met a witch who gave her something she could use to teach the people of Atidu a lesson if she so desires. But she said that at the time, she didn't think it was necessary. "I still have with me what the witch gave me, and I think it is time that the people of Atidu be taught a lesson," the old woman said. "Do you agree with me on this?" she asked Temidayo. 2 weeks after the event of Temidayo's banishment, a young, handsome man came into the village of Atidu. His name was Kunle. He told them he was from the neighboring village but had been in the north with his uncle. He was a meat seller and he began selling fresh meat in the popular Atidun village markets. Kunle's meats were always fresh and very big, and so are they very tender. But two things stood out the most about the meat Kunle sold. And this was the fact that he sold them very cheap. And secondly, they were never fly specing his meats, unlike it is with the other meat sellers. This, which attracted the villagers to buy from him. But it didn't end there. The women of the village also noticed that Kunle's meat tasted sweeter than any other meats they had ever tasted in the past. Even their husbands noticed and said so. And so, they patronized Kunle the more. Then something began to happen later in the grain months. At least one person out of every family in Atidun started smelling like a dead carcass. It was the wife, the husband, or their children. But certainly, every family in Atidun had someone smelling awfully. At first, they didn't understand what was happening, and the other members of the family attacked with their words the member of the family with the awful smell and accused that member of the family of not taking their hygiene seriously. But with each growing day, the number of each family member smelling in a family increased. Also, each family member had kept it a secret as they individually thought that it was peculiar to their own family and didn't know it was happening with other families as well. Until later, everyone eventually found out because the smell grew worse and the whole village was now smelling like dead carcass. For Olu, Temidayo's father's house, it was Ajoke, Temidayo's stepmother, and her daughter that smelled. The village head was also not spared. In his palace and his family, he and his wife were the ones who smelled. It was a serious and a terrible situation in the whole of Atidun. The whole village smelled as though there were dead carcasses everywhere. It even affected their food and the water. Everything smelled of dead carcass or like it. Everyone in Atidun became very worried. They didn't understand what was going wrong. They started asking if they were cursed or had offended the gods. And one day, the whole village, together with the village head, came together to sort for a solution to their problem. They consulted the diviner, who in return consulted with the gods. The gods said you all are suffering as a result of your collective wrong deeds, the diviner told them. Our collective wrong deeds? How? What did we do wrong? The villagers asked. The diviner consulted with the gods further again, and when he was done, he told them, the gods have not revealed to me what wrong you all have committed. But they said that if you all would go to the new meat seller and seek for forgiveness from him, then your troubles would be over and the smell would vanish, the diviner informed the villagers. The new meat seller? Kunle? But we haven't wronged Kunle. Instead, we welcomed him into our village and even left our own indigenes to patronize him. So how did we wrong him? The villagers wondered and asked among themselves. This time, the elders and the village head were wise and decided to do as the diviner said. So, they sent a few elders as peacemakers to Kunle and begged him to come to the palace and to let them know how they have wronged him so they would apologize. Kunle listened to the pleas of the elders that were sent to him and went to the palace. When he got there, he spoke. You people of Atido village, fear what you do not know and understand, which is normal and expected. But instead of seeking wisdom to help you understand that which you do not know and to know how to navigate it, you all would rather work to destroy it and act with ignorance and foolishness, he said. Then he took off from his neck a bead he had always wore since he got into Atidu. And immediately he took it off, he transformed into Temidayo, the albino, the one whom they had discriminated against for years and had framed up and branded a thief, flogged mercilessly, and banished unjustly. The whole village gasped when they saw their popular meat seller Kunle transform to Temidayo. A few almost ran out of fear. I am Temidayo, as you all have seen, Temidayo continued. I am also just an ordinary human as the rest of you all. And the reason my skin and the way I look is different from the rest of you all, I believe only the gods know and decided it that way. I am not evil and have no power or the ability to cause harm to you people. I am not cursed either. The gods willed it that I be born this way, and I cannot question the gods. I understand that you should feel the way you do and have fear when you saw the way I am because you have never seen such before. But instead of treating me like an outcast and judging me, why not seek to understand why I am the way I am? Temidayo said. He continued, well, I met an old woman after you all cast me out. She gave me this bead to change the way I look and a spell from a witch to cast on the meat I sold to you people so that I can use it to teach you all a lesson. I can see that you all sought for solution and wisdom to understand the reason why you all suddenly began to smell awfully. Why didn't you cast yourselves out? No, you couldn't because you all were affected directly. But if it was someone else and a single person, you would have judged and cast the person away. This is meant to teach you all a lesson that it is wrong to judge and discriminate against a thing or person without first understanding the thing or the person. It is meant to teach you to seek wisdom and knowledge behind something you do not understand before acting against it, Temidayo told them. The whole village fell silent as they all realized the wrong they have done, the foolishness of their acts, and as they saw the wisdom in Temidayo's words. The whole village, including the village head, begged Dayo and asked for his forgiveness. Even Temidayo's father, Olu, stepped forward from the crowd and begged his son to forgive him with tears and remorse. Temidayo forgave them, and immediately he did, the awful smell disappeared. Temidayo also took them to Ewa, the old woman at the bush. They begged and asked for Ewa's forgiveness as well, and begged her to return to the village. Things went back to normal in the village after that, and everyone interacted and lived happily together. And from that day, the whole village of Atidun and even the villages beyond learned not to judge something they do not understand, but to seek for wisdom and knowledge behind it first before acting against it. And this is the lesson I want you, my listeners, to learn from this story as well. Sometimes we do not understand something or someone and we tend to judge them. But before judging them, why not pause and try to understand the reason behind that thing, the reason for that thing? Because if it were you, just like the people of Atidu, if it affects you directly, you would want to pause and find out why. So why not extend that same gesture to the other person? I hope you have learned something from this story. Please, if you enjoyed this story, do not forget to give it a like and share with your friends and loved ones. And until I come again with another story, it's bye for now.